Good evening. It is 5:40 on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Chairman John Hastings presiding. Also present are Commissioners Grant Simmons, Slate Camp, and Ben McGran. And everybody, yes. And we will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, there are listening devices available. If anyone in attendance would like one, please visit with the clerk up front. Are there any other general announcements from the commissioners or city staff?
Mr. Chairman, just for the commission's information, your March 7th meeting, you will have a public hearing on a rezone request. And that is at the corner of North Boyer and Pine Street, northwest corner of North Boyer and Pine.
Gotcha. And I will make an announcement. I don't have the date in front of me. Perhaps you know, but I know I just got an email that the Sandpoint envisioning for the downtown waterfront, there's going to be a public forum on April 12, 13. Do you know?
There is a meeting on the 14th. But I thought that was more the technical advisory committee.
Correct, but there was a public meeting that was posted already too.
Okay.
But if we're not sure of the date, we have plenty of time. We'll get the exact date later. But just so everybody knows, that envisioning group, there is going to be public input at a meeting coming up this spring. So the first action item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January 31st, 2023 meeting.
Motion.
Made and second.
Second.
And second. All in favor by voice?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. That's right. And we have 2 minutes because of correction that have been made. So I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February 7th, 2023 meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
And second?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Old business. The next item on the agenda this evening is continued review and discussion of the comprehensive plan, land use and growth chapter. And I will now yield the floor to City Planner Amy Tweeten to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your packet, you had a revised draft of chapter 4 that incorporated previous edits and then the identified land uses that are incorporated into the future land use map. And then, so there were no changes from those from previous discussion, but the last time we discussed the future land use map, the commission did give some direction on changes, and then also had asked for some additional time for that review. And so I'll just bring up the current. Version. So this should actually be draft 2 because we made changes since draft 1. The biggest visible change was putting the airport properties in that quasi public land use versus industrial, which does make a dramatic impact on what appears to be future growth area for industrial uses. So that was one of the main changes. And then keeping, let's see if I can just zoom in. The downtown, other than the what properties that are identified as public, quasi-public, remains the same, with still that area west of Fifth Street, identified as a study area, but it is still identified future land use as the downtown, land use category. Then we had some discussion on the property along North Boyer, specifically between Cedar and Larch. That is an existing neighborhood. There's some discussion. What it was showing was half a block of single family. There was some discussion of would that ever go commercial? I think more likely showing it as the medium density residential as the rest of those of that neighborhood, and maintaining the low density east of Boyer, is probably more logical, than showing that as future commercial. Let's see, those were the main changes. And again, the commission had seen it the first time we talked about it last. So I didn't know if the commission maybe had some additional comments or questions that you wanted to go over.
So just remind me, the one property that was there at Schweitzer Cutoff, it was previously zoned. Was it residential?
Well, again, this is land use, not zoning. But we showed it potentially as staying, I think we had it as like a neighborhood mixed use.
Right.
And I think based on Miriam's comments that when we went through the airport chapter, it was acknowledging that the properties within the airport overlay zones should be identified to the greatest extent possible as lower density. So what the current zoning there is mixed use residential. But for purposes of future land use, probably keeping that area as industrial makes the most sense.
So if somebody were to apply for a permit now to do a residential project there, what would happen?
Currently, it is zoned mixed use residential, which allows single family and multiple family up to 7 units.
Mhm.
So under the current zoning, they could do that.
Okay.
Without, if they wanted more than that and went for a conditional use permit, then that would kick in review of the comprehensive plan and the airport chapter, and that likely would not get approved.
Okay.
But for the uses that are currently allowed in that district, they could build.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
can you put your cursor over that parcel again, please?
South
The
of
one-
Schweitzer
Yeah, the one that Ben was just talking about.
here. So right. So it's this area.
Okay,
And there's still a few corrections that need to be made to this map, one being this area inside this little box actually is not within the city limits. This is actually within Bonner County. It is existing low density residential, but it's not actually in the city, so we should probably just not have it any color. And then another area let's see, I don't think we got it corrected. If you recall the Culver's Drive rezone we did, that is right in this vicinity. And we had rezoned it, we had did a comprehensive plan amendment and we rezoned it because they were pre-existing residential structures. And they wanted to continue to build out what had been there. So we will need to change the land use probably in this area. I think I'm trying to remember what commercial district we put it in, but that is something that we're gonna need to address just on Culver's Drive.
Both on land use map and on zoning.
Well, right now, we're just doing future land
Correct.
use, so, but we
Right.
don't want to get back in the same situation we were in, which I'm not even in the right place here. Hang on. It's right in
Right in
this
here.
vicinity. So here's North Boyer, here's Culver's Drive. This is Culver's Crossing, so it's these properties in this area. So we're showing this side of Culver's Drive as mixed use or
Gotcha.
neighborhood mixed use. We may look at doing something similar over here. Again, it's outside of the airport intercritical zone, so residential uses could be as well as commercial uses might be appropriate there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
two questions. For my own edification, describe the difference between neighborhood mixed use and mixed use corridor.
Mixed use corridor is primarily the highway
Got it.
corridor.
Okay,
And the busier streets, whereas neighborhood mixed use, the intent is to be more of a trying to zoom out, not zoom in, but I'm not. Is more the buffer between a higher density area and a
residential,
neighborhood.
okay.
So, I'm gonna pull this up again. Oh, it's still zoomed out.
There's in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little one that has a cross on it.
Oh.
See in the bottom left-hand corner, there's one that has a
On the
cross
left.
on it. Yep, keep on going, keep on going, keep on. one more.
There you go.
That's it.
There we go. Thank you. So if so for example, neighborhood, mixed use is being shown at the corner, kind of on the edges of downtown,
Mhm.
or on the edges of neighborhoods here on North Division. But the dark red is primarily following the highway.
Yeah, it's that one on North Division that I was just trying to describe in my head of why, like, why would that be? Well, I guess it makes sense. That's neighborhood mixed use. It's breaking up neighborhoods. My second question is, if you go to, if we go over between Baldy Mountain and Larch again, up there, right there. Yeah, there's a little bit of parkland right in the middle of that industrial, and I'm trying to figure out what that's describing.
So that is the Jocelyn site, and that is currently under remediation.
Oh,
environmental
okay, got it.
remediation.
All right. It's a remediating park.
Well, in all likelihood, the future ownership of that would be municipal, so there's potential that we could
Figure
do
something
some
out.
sort of public, quasi-public may be a better use there, but
For now, it's open space. Totally makes
Right,
sense. Yeah,
right.
cool.
so that's what, at least part of it. And then we're showing the part that's running Boyer as being heavy commercial industrial.
When are those mitigation efforts supposed to wrap up?
I can't, they did a full report to council, and I can't remember how many years they said, I want to say they are going to be remediating. They're doing a remediation with tree wells.
Hmm.
And I am not going to be able to remember how many years they said it was, but I want to say it was in the 5 to 10 year range.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hastings?
Yes, Commissioner Kemp.
So back to the subject, green property there, open space. Is it actually been released for public
No,
access? Okay,
no, it has not.
okay.
And then I'd have a question for you too, if you were complete there. And that was, are there any anomalies that you see in here? Anything that doesn't fit with where it is and anything that needs to be addressed? Or have we kind of touched on all that with the draft we're currently looking at?
Again, this should be not looking at just what is today, but what
Right.
may become in the future. I wouldn't say we are proposing any dramatic changes from, again, other than the language change of calling them character areas. I don't think there's any areas that are dramatically changing future land uses. We are, again, because your future land use map is trying to balance the many different goals of the comprehensive plan. So we have increased the amount of what we're calling medium density residential. So again, in the middle neighborhood here, there's a few blocks that instead of low density splitting the block, we have called that all medium density. Again, that doesn't mean that a single family can't continue to exist there. And this is really more going to inform when we are updating zoning, whether we have, currently we only have 2 residential zoning districts. You're either single family or you're multiple family, and maybe we'd want to have something in between. But the other area there was that change is south of Main Street, so Main and Lincoln. This area had some area that was character area 1.5 or something, and then the rest of it was character area 2. But we just called that whole area south of Main Street medium density residential. But really, I would not say there's a lot of dramatic changes to the map.
Okay.
Again, we identified high density, so any of the existing multifamily complexes, so whether that's on North Boyer or that is Seasons or Condo del Sol, those are all identified as high density residential, because don't really envision that that's going to change in the next 20 years. But that had been identified as downtown, but really the use, it's still zoned the same as rest downtown, but the use itself is high density residential. So it's just keeping straight on what is land use, what is zoning and regulations.
Thank you.
And Hastings got another question.
And obviously the future land use is where people feel might feel they're most impacted out of the whole comprehensive plan, because a lot of the others are broader general. So I'm working with Miriam to come up with doing either a separate workshop just on the land use chapter and the future land use map, or whether that it makes more sense to do workshops with it as a whole with the comprehensive plan, because it's just looking at the map without the rest of the goals and objectives may not mean a lot to people. So I'm working with Miriam to try to come up with some potential dates for those workshops.
Okay. Commissioner McGrath.
Yeah. How does this play into the area city impact and that? I know that that's a piece that we're working through, and how does the future land use map and that interact?
It will become part of the future land use map, so we will have our boundary of what the future land use map or the area of shoot, it's gonna do this again. So outside of the city limits, but areas that we will potentially grow into will be that area of city impact. So we are going to be, we have to negotiate that with the county. So we're going to be starting a process to begin that. And that will be both defining generally what that boundary is going to be. And that what we'd ultimately like to do is have an interim agreement so that we can more or less settle on what the boundary is and then do a full sub area plan for that area so that we can focus just on the, because obviously when you look at the numbers, the city limit's not going to take the growth that's projected. It's going to be growing the city limits. So then that sub area plan will look both at, we'll look at not just land uses, but utility and transportation corridors in that area. So that will, the process starts with city council sending it back to the planning commission to ask for the question to renegotiate, and that'll start the process.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hastings,
Yes, Commissioner Camp.
I have a question about the study areas designation.
Okay.
I don't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not on here. What exactly is that for?
This was an area we had on a previous map, had a few additional areas identified as study areas kind of along the perimeter of downtown. But based on the discussion of the commission, the only area we have it as now and will likely just take it off at this time is the downtown land use category that extends west of Fifth Avenue, or is that more of a neighborhood commercial? Probably is not the highway commercial, but that was just is the downtown currently is categorized as extending that far. And so it's just, is that an area of discussion of, is that a downtown land use category, or is that a different mixed use neighborhood category? That might be a different scale. But again, the land uses are similar, but when you get to looking at the zoning of that area may be different. It may be once you get into the zoning. And again, this is what a lot of the downtown waterfront design competition, even though it's called the waterfront competition, I think they're going to be looking at the whole of downtown. Whether it is just one zoning district, or you have districts within that, or sub areas that have different regulations for the west half of downtown, from the waterfront, from the, so if you have districts within your downtown, but that the hatched area was just keeping in mind that the area west of Fifth starts to feel a little different than the rest of downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have more for us? So that is the end of your presentation at this time.
Have any other questions on that?
Do any of the commissioners have further question of staff
I do
at
not.
this time? All right. Then we'll move on. Also on the agenda under old business is a requested development update and development process overview by staff. And so I will again yield the floor to City Planner Amy Tweeten.
Just to the, during the training session, the commission had asked for an update on, both on development as it's going through the process, where we're headed, and then kind of what the process overview is in terms of how do things move through the system, what's the timing. So we try to keep it at a quarterly basis. So this is the year-end planning and zoning applications. So this is applications that have been processed over the past 6 years. So you can see last year was busy relative to previous years. And the types of applications that this chart includes are pre-application meetings when someone comes and they want basic information. We try to give them guidance on what the process is moving forward. Subdivisions, which include both preliminary and final plats, short plats, and then lot line adjustments. Conditional use permits that come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, rezones and PUDs that go to both Planning and Zoning and City Council, and appeals and variances.
A question, if I might. So this is number of applications, not necessarily number of dwelling units.
Right, this is just applications processed.
Yeah.
There we go. Hang on. Okay, and building permits. So this is actually building permits issued. So again, permits are issued. That doesn't mean that construction necessarily happens immediately. What you're seeing in this slide is we had a lot of permits come in at the end of the third quarter because fees went up. So a lot of people applied for permits or had permits issued because they wanted to get under that fee. So there was a big jump in that third quarter. And because I know the commission is interested in how does this translate to dwelling units? So of the 360 total permits, that's 62 single family homes, 8 accessory dwelling units, and 10 multi-family units permits. So again, for active residential, we have 8 active subdivisions. 2 of these, Madison Meadows and Boyer Meadows, are fully through final plat. They're recorded. Well, I don't know that Boyer Meadows is recorded, but all the infrastructure is there. The final plat's been approved. So those 2 are 2 built out infrastructure subdivisions waiting for purchase. That's about 30 dwelling units of lot inventory. And then the others, Boyer Farms Phase 2, I think, has had 2 of the 25 lots. 2 houses are built. Madera and Goodman are mostly built out subdivisions at this point. And Randolph Place was just a 4 lot short plat. And then the 3 multifamily developments that are under construction are the Ridge and Cedar, Homestead, and Samuelson. And then pending residential again is the conditional use permit on North Boyer for Milltown, which I will show you the map again of where Okay, so you've seen this map before. Kind of starting from the north is the Samuelson development, which is a large multifamily development. And then you have Boyer Farms Phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 has made it through final plat, and Boyer Farms Phase 2 had the preliminary plat approved. And I anticipate they'll finish their infrastructure this spring, summer, and then they'll come back for final plat for Boyer Farms Phase 2. Let's see, the 20, this is Boyer Meadows, and that has its final plat approved. Those lots are ready, essentially to start having permits issued once the plat is recorded. You have University Place Phases 1 through 3, Culver's Crossing, that is another, all their infrastructure is complete, that final plat is recorded. Those are ready to have building permits issued. University Place Phase 4, that is still going through the development agreement phase, and they will be coming back with final plat approvals for that. The 134 is the Milltown site. And I anticipate that to start this spring, but we have not received the building permits yet. If you recall, that was a conditional use permit. So it came through the commission. There were several conditions of approval on that. One of them being the traffic analysis, and that's being reviewed currently. They also have to combine that. So there's several steps before they even get to the point of building permit application. So this 32 multifamily, that is the lofts at Cedar. So that will be a mixed use building, ground floor commercial, upper floor multifamily. And that'll be 32 dwelling units. And then on the west side, this is Madison Meadows and the Ridge at Cedar. South of Pine is a 5-unit cottage development, somewhat similar to the one on Division. That is going through the approval process. Again, construction has started on the homestead. That's going to be a total of 108 units. And then we also have building application for a 24-unit multifamily on Olive, South Olive. And then there's the Lights Out 102 multifamily. And we just received their application for, they needed to combine the lots because you can't build a building over a lot, and they wanted to divide off part of their parcel. So they'll be going through that process as well. So those are the active or pending residential developments.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Particularly on the multifamily units. Is that a mix of individual ownership and rental?
On any particular project, most of these are anticipated to be rental.
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Hastings,
Yes, Commissioner Camp.
I have a question on the 32 in that 6 area.
Hang on, I'll go.
Trying to figure out exactly where that is.
The 32, the lofts at Cedar. So it's right at Cedar and Main. Right at the junction of Cedar and Main.
But that's not the big building that's being constructed there now.
No.
It's on the other
that's
side of the
at
street.
Cedar.
Okay,
This is farther down Cedar. Really, it doesn't take up that space. It's south of the alley between Main Sixth and I can't think of what this street is. But it's fronting on Main. But you're thinking of Main and Cedar. Or Fifth and
yeah, I
Cedar.
was thinking Fifth and Cedar on the loft style one. But that one I wasn't aware of.
I'm trying to place it too.
Yeah, this is new to the map.
Seems like it's right by somewhere in that area of Tendrils and
Yeah,
Misty
it's-
Mountain Furniture.
Right, that's exactly where it is,
Okay,
in that stretch.
wow.
Mhm. Okay, so let's see, I just. Okay, wanted to talk a little bit through the development review process. Kind of just going through what the different application types that are being reviewed. There are those that go through Planning and Zoning Commission solely. Those are conditional use permits. Appeals of building permit decisions, site plan decisions and variances. So those all have their own time frame. Let's see. This is not wanting. There. There, can see it. So conditional use permits, typical approval process is 2 months. That involves one public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Appeals and variances, it just varies again when the application is made, is it complete? Then the next category are those applications that go through planning and zoning and city council. So those are preliminary plats. So those generally take 2 to 3 months. And there's public hearing at each of those. We currently have one of those under review. Comprehensive plan amendments, 2 to 3, 2 public hearings, 2 to 3 months. Rezoning requests, if someone wants to do a map amendment, that's 2 to 3 months, 2 hearings. That is, we have 2 of those in process. Currently, there'll be one that the commission recommended to council going March 1st to city council, and then you will have one on March 7th. Let's see, plan unit developments, again, those, we had 2 of them last year and there hadn't been many prior to that, but those tend to take longer. They're more complex projects. And it depends how many things are going on. So University Place Phase 4 had a PUD, a rezone, and subdivision action. Culver's Crossing was subdivision and a PUD, so it went faster, and then a lot of the time horizon also depends time of year they apply. Can they start construction right away or can't they? Appeals are 1 to 2 months of staff decision. Zoning code amendments, again, 2 public hearings. So that could be 2 months, 2+. City council, final plats only go to city council, so that is about a month from application date to when that action is taken. Development agreements, those vary. Appeals of planning and zoning action, 1 to 2 months. And then staff reviews are building permit site plan reviews. So I'll give an example again of Milltown. Milltown went through the conditional use process. They had a very complete site plan, but they didn't include all the details that they have to when they go to building permit. So we'll be reviewing it and making sure all the code, all the zoning code, building code, fire code, everything is addressed when the building permit is applied for. So that process again takes a variable amount of time, and a lot of it depends on knowledge of the applicant. Do they have a professional working with them? And we currently have 8 of those under review. And then short plats are land divisions of 4 or fewer parcels. So those are staff reviewed with recommendation to the mayor. And that's generally a 2 to 3 month process. And again, that includes each of these various actions. The code has different requirements. Do you need a public hearing? How many day appeal? So even those administrative actions require a comment period by adjacent property owners, and then an opportunity for an appeal. So all of those add timelines to how quickly a project moves through.
Chairman Hastings, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner McCrane.
Amy, the one zone text amendment, can you remind us which one is that?
The zoning text amendment. Zoning code text amendment, let me think.
Maybe you.
Oh, exactly. That is the accessory dwelling units that the commission had sent to council, and council wants. So we've been working on that language and what are the parts that need to be reviewed to bring back to council. So that those would be text amendments to the code.
Right, and so that one is coming back to us.
I think they'll have you schedule a public hearing versus them, but they'll have to make that decision. They could hold the public hearing themselves.
Okay.
But I anticipate they'll want you to see the language before it goes to public hearing.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question for you before you move on, or you don't have to go back, but on the short plot, I was just curious. I know other jurisdictions, that's somewhat of a controversial thing right now, where they think that short plat process is being abused, where adjacent properties, instead of going through it as one parcel, they're going through it as several parcels to get under that 4 plat. Is that anything that's even an issue in Sandpoint? I know we don't have the kind of available land for that really to maybe even be an issue.
Well, it's interesting you asked, because we do have, you can't short plat a short plat. So once you've done those 4 divisions,
You're dead.
if you want to divide one of those further, you actually have to go through the subdivision process. We actually have a couple of those that will be coming to you. Because it's basically you're avoiding it's making sure you go through the public process. So even though you may not be doing a full subdivision where you're dedicating right of way, you have exceeded that administrative level of approval. So you have to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. Not to say it wouldn't get approved, but it's just more of a process.
Yeah. Thank you.
And this is just kind of a flow. This is a general flow chart, but every application is slightly different. But just wanted to kind of put this together in terms of what's the applicant doing, staff, planning and zoning and council. So we always have a pre-application meeting with applicants. Let them know the process, and I'll show you the different materials that we give them or that are also available on our website. So we go through the pre-application, answer the general questions of, these are your zoning districts. This is what you need to be looking for. and the general boundary of what they're making sure they're applying for the correct thing. Then they submit their application. We review it. Is it complete? Does it have everything we need? And that tends to be a circular process. So they submit, we identify something, we let them know, they get us something, maybe they don't get it all right away. But so that's kind of a back and forth. Then we get into, once we have a complete application, we do the code compliance review. And again, depending on what level we are in the application, that could be building, fire, engineering's reviewing it, planning and zoning are reviewing it. So we identify things that are lacking, let them know. We try to get it as code compliant as we can before we even decide to schedule a public hearing. Because by the time it gets to you, there shouldn't be any, like major problems with the application. So, so then once it is a complete, and for the most part, code compliant, application that we feel comfortable we could put conditions of approval on it for your consideration. Then there's a 21-day hearing notice. So then we have the public hearing. If it's a final action by the planning commission, then you take action and there's a notice of decision. Again, that may have conditions for the applicant that they have to address. Otherwise, there's another staff report, another 21-day hearing before it goes to public hearing at city council. They do their notice of decision, which may also have conditions of approval. Let's see. And then I just wanted to show you. The city, on the city website, under planning and building. So these are all the applications. Then we'll have FAQs of when do you need a permit? But then we have for the building permit, there's a step-by-step story for applying. So if you're applying for a residential permit, it'll walk you through applying, application. And there's a checklist. So for the residential building permit checklist, what are the required documents, design criteria? So more than so the one we work with a lot is the new development checklist other than single family dwellings. Because when we're having a pre-application, it's not generally for a single family home. So there's kind of a two-part application. So what are they initially submitting? And then what are all the pieces that they have to? So again, it's how quickly they get us all of the required documentation. And then it can go through if it needs to be sent to the traffic engineer, if it needs to be sent to the civil engineers for water and sewer reviews. And then it goes on in more detail of what the requirements are. So we try to give as much information at that pre-application meeting as possible. I guess that was the information I wanted to provide for kind of what is the review process. And as much as, you know, for an initial submittal, we try to say, for a building permit application, it's 15 business days, and we'll let you know where, you know, how complete is your application? How quickly do we think this can actually get compliance?
Commissioners, any additional questions for staff?
Thanks for pulling this together.
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite
and I
the
have,
year-over-year increase in submittals. Yeah. What's this year feeling like so far? What's this year feeling like so far? Almost
We've
going
had a
first
lot
quarter.
of short plat applications. But it isn't feeling as crazy as last year.
Yeah.
We're not having a new subdivision walk in the door every week, so.
I have one question.
Yes.
The now online, is this brand new? For the application process?
That story that I showed you, or just.
No,
all
when you
the-
went to the city website,
Let me go back. Let's see.
it's okay. I was just checking to see if it was new because I hadn't seen it, but I haven't been on the site. Or you apply
all the
online.
Information has been there. But. Let's see.
It's fine, Amy.
Oh, I
Fine.
The new development checklist, I know we've updated it and revised it to
Mhm.
try to be more and more clear.
Mhm.
Get the questions covered up front instead of further down the road.
Right. Try.
Good, and thank you. Any other questions, comments?
No.
Yeah, just
Okay.
thanks for sharing that. It's good information to see, and I think that the ongoing visibility to what's in that pipeline and those updates is
Mhm.
a good rhythm of business.
All right, well, next on the agenda is a new item requested by the commission, which is a roundtable discussion. Please note that updates on upcoming agenda items may be provided by staff, but discussion of applications scheduled to come before the commission is not appropriate during the roundtable. Do commissioners have any items for this discussion today?
I do not.
Nothing.
I don't either.
I don't know what I don't know yet, so.
Would you like us to tell you? No, I'm.
Come out over the course, do more of
All right, well, and with no further business before the commission, this meeting is now adjourned at 6:34. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.